So on Monday, we were talking about the overall on the Four Noble Truth. As I said, this Noble Truth, each one of them have the principle or the theme. That is to say, the first Noble Truth, the Noble Truth of Dukkha, is to be fully understood. Fully understood, that means is to have to be seen correctly. The second one, in the origin of dukkha, then is to be fully eradicated. Then the third one, cessation of dukkha, that will be fully realized. And the fourth one, the path leading to the cessation of dukkha, then that one is to be fully developed or fully cultivated. Then also I mentioned about there are 16 ways of how we have a different perspective on the dukkha. On the Four Noble Truth. Each of the Noble Truth, then each of the Noble Truth, then they have 4 ways of looking at it. So as I said, that one we're going to repeat it again afterwards. Then we will see into it how we're going to look into this, all this, the different perspective of dukkha. So tonight we are going to look into the first Noble Truth, the Noble Truth of dukkha, dukkha ariya satcha. Now we use the word dukkha instead of the word suffering or illness because the English word does not have a right connotation or the right meaning on the word dukkha. Although sometimes translators are forced into using English, So the nearest it could be unsatisfactory. Some people translate it as illness. Some people translate it as suffering. Some people translate as stress. So all this, they are not very good translation because it doesn't cover the whole meaning of dukkha, the whole range of dukkha. We will see afterwards why is it so. Why is it that when you use the word English word suffering, then it only cover the painful part only, whereas the happiness and so on, that is not covered. So we're going to see that also. And also, when we go into practice, and especially in a deeper practice, you will actually see this yourself. We'll talk about it too. Now, we start off with what the Buddha mentioned about what is dukkha. When the Buddha used the word what is dukkha, then of course the normal one we know, birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, and so on. So all together there are 13. There are 13 ways of how we look at it. I'm going to share the screen again here. Can you see? Okay, all right. Now, here is where all these 13 parts of it, which the Buddha mentioned in the text. Sometimes the Buddha mentioned only 4: birth, aging, illness, death. And the rest also the Buddha did not mention. Other parts, the Buddha mentioned some of it, some Buddha mentioned all of it. So tonight we're going to look into at least a little bit on the top here, on this thing here. So here, the first one is birth. Birth here is connected. This one is to the rebirth, relinking consciousness, where the birth arises. Yeah, especially when we look into the 12 dependent origination, there's a rebirth consciousness or rebirth relinking consciousness. So this one is connected to the first one. Birth is dukkha. Second one is aging. Again, aging here is it has to be connected to something. You cannot say aging 70 years old, 80 years old. It doesn't have that effect. It has to be connected to for example, like your strength is getting weaker. Your digestive system is getting weaker. Your eyes, you cannot see near or you cannot see far. Your, what else? Your arthritis starts coming up. Your problem here, problem there, all coming up. That is how we say aging. It has to be connected to something. Because this word aging here, in the different times in samsara, if you are 80 years old, then you are just maybe just a kid only, maybe just compared to us, maybe about 2 or 3 years old on here. Because that time the human beings can live for a long period of time. So it says that the human beings from the sutta can live up to 100,000 years. So if that time, if 100,000 years you can live until that long, 80 years is nothing much, isn't it? So it always has to come with context, the aging. Has to come with context. The third one, illness or sickness here. Now, sickness here is something quite interesting. Sometimes when the Buddha gave the talk on this Four Noble Truths, he mentioned birth, aging, and death. It minus the sickness. Then there are also reasons why the Buddha also did not mention sickness or illness. Here, because sometimes when he talked to, or he give a sermon to the devas, the deva thinking, what sickness? This is only for the human beings and for the animals. But for the devas, what sickness? Nothing. So maybe he didn't talk about birth, aging, or may talk about this sickness or illness. Or there also commentary also mentioned why the Buddha did not talk, because there are some people who actually don't get sick in their whole life. It's interesting. So there are also devotees who one time or twice they came to told me that, yeah, they met with people that actually don't get sick. So in the commentary it's mentioned that there's one monk by the name of Bakula, Elder Bakula. He became a monk, he became a bhikkhu at the age of 80. At the age of 80, then he lived for another 80 years. So he lived for 160 years. It's mentioned in the books, So if it is real, then it could be a Guinness Book of World of Records. Live 160 years. So for those who are reaching 80, it's still not too late yet to become a monk. And it's mentioned also that particular type of monk, his lunch or his meal, he just eat one morsel of rice, of food. One morsel means about one handful only, and he can live for that long. So what type of karma he has, we really do not know. But blessed with great health, long life, without all this sickness. So it's mentioned that there are some people, very rare, but there are some people in this world who do not have sickness. Death here, of course, it comes with this the death consciousness, that we all know. Now, sorrow here, sorrow means here is sadness. You go through sadness when you lost somebody, you lost your things, or you lost somebody that you love. Or sometimes also may not be that you love. It could be some idea, some thoughts, or some people from far away. Then you see the person died, also you get into sorrow. Sometimes you even like you watch movie, or you watch movie, all these sad movies. Then all the sorrow comes up. But you kind of like it. Sometimes I don't really understand why my mother and all the neighbors, when they come into this Taiwan movie, especially Taiwan series, a lot of crying one. The more they see, the more they like it. Why? Anyway, sorrow here means it consumes. It totally consumes the whole mind. It burns, consumes the person into all this sadness. Lamentation means the person cried out loud, especially when we attend funerals, and then you can see this crying out loud, very, very this one. Or sometimes there are also, for certain reasons, sad reasons, distress reasons, then the crying out loud, lamentation. Bodily pain. Bodily pain here, and also because on number 7, on this bodily pain, they minus out this sickness of the body, because bodily pain is also connected to sickness of the body, according to the commentary. So here the bodily pain is all these various pain that you encounter, leg pain, that pain, knee pain, thighs pain, muscle pain, all this that you all know. Mental stress here, it's actually mental pain, mental unpleasant feelings. Whereas the 7th one, the bodily pain, is bodily unpleasant feelings. So the mental unpleasant feelings here, it encompass a lot of things, meaning that when you are angry or when you are fearful, that also falls under this mental stress. They in the Visuddhimagga, the translation, they put it as grief. Whereas grief and sorrow, it looks very much the same. So here, when they explained it, it's connected to all these mental stress or mental unpleasant feelings. And these mental unpleasant feelings can go into also very strong, in the sense that you can fall into anxiety, all kinds of mental unpleasant feelings. Even like, for example, somebody died and then you go into some kind of depression, and even like tear the hair out, beat the chest, and so on. Despair here, means you totally have, the mind has totally have no hope already. There's no light at the end of the tunnel anymore. Everything is dark already. There's no hope. It's also a form of a mental stress, but this is right at the end already, end of the line. And sometimes with this, it comes with suicide. It comes with killing oneself, and so on. Yeah? And in the commentary, it mentioned that the sorrow is like when you are boiling a pot of soup. Let's say you're boiling a pot of soup. Sorrow is like when the soup is boiling. Lamentation is like the soup is coming out from the pot. Whereas despair is like the soup has dried up. Totally dried up, nothing there. Yeah? So something like this. To give you an example, to give you an analogy of how do we look at all these things, all this meaning here. Association with the unloved. Here can be your things, or can be situation, or also can be people. When you things that you really don't like. Separation from the love. That means again here you are separated, and all the stress and sorrow all comes up. And you don't get what you want as number 12. So the 13th one. The 5 aggregates of clinging. The 5 aggregates of clinging. We cannot able to cover everything for dukkha, because dukkha is in a way everything. And the Buddha cannot able to cover. Buddha can give you all the sum of the meanings here, and then finally the Buddha says, in short, the 5 aggregates of clinging is dukkha. Then here is the 5 aggregates of clinging, not just 5 aggregates. It's because of the clinging arises, then the dukkha comes in. Now, when we are practicing, when you are doing development of the mind, especially in vipassana, we will not deal with the first and the 12th one because it's already there after all. Aging is already there. Some sickness here, bodily pain here, and already there. You got your high blood pressure. You still need to come to retreat. Also, you got some. So your sugar is a bit high. You still you can still able to make it for a retreat too. So what we are interested here is on the number 13 one. The 5 aggregates of clinging. That one is more connected with our practice, and especially with the mental development, and especially in the Satipatthana. There was a request also earlier on when I asked for topics. Somebody asked for 5 aggregates of clinging. They want to know how it to be defined and how it to be practiced. So I was thinking that the 5 aggregates of clinging has to be connected with the Four Noble Truths. Now, in the classification, how you class this dukkha, then sometimes you can class it more simple ones, and sometimes you can class it to be more connected with the development of the mind, especially how different ways of looking at dukkha. So there's one way of a simple classification of dukkha. If we look at this 1 to 13, there are 2 ways you can able. The first one, how you classify it, is called concealed dukkha and exposed dukkha. Concealed dukkha or exposed dukkha. Exposed dukkha here means that birth, aging, illness, death, sorrow, lamentation, bodily pain. Lamentation until lamentation is all this also can be said as exposed dukkha. Birth here, it may be quite difficult to see if we connect it with the rebirth relinking consciousness, because it's inside inside the mother's womb. But when it's birth coming out from the mother's womb, after 9 months, then that one we can see that also is a form of dukkha. Bodily pain here, it can be exposed. It can be exposed, or it can be also internal, or concealed here. Because if you are having back pain, but you can smile, you can laugh, and you can this one, nobody knows that you are having all this bodily pain. So it's concealed in a sense. Mental stress also the same thing. It can be concealed because you cannot see the suffering that the person is going through. So that one is concealed. Despair, sometimes we can see it from the face and so on. Association with the unloved, separation with the loved. And then again here, it can be concealed, it can be exposed, because sometimes our face does not show it off. Sometimes we actually show it that when we are separated from the love or associate with the unloved. The 5 aggregates of clinging here is mostly will be concealed one. So they are this way. The next one, the next classification of how we classify this dukkha. And the second one is actually more important to how we develop the satipatthana, into how we develop the mind, because they will be connected to the, you see this one, the dukkha meaning of oppressing, being formed, burning, changing. Here is the meaning here. Now, when you classify them, I show you the next slide. The next slide is how you classify the different type, the dukkha again in another way. And then just now the meaning will be very much connected to here. Now, first one, it's the Pali word is called dukkha dukkha. Dukkha dukkha here is the painful dukkha. Or here you can actually use the word suffering in English. Intrinsic suffering. Sometimes they use the word intrinsic suffering. And this one connected with all the unpleasant feelings, whether it's mental or physical. The second one is viparinama dukkha. Viparinama dukkha here is dukkha due to change. Due to change here, according to the Visuddhimagga, this is pleasant feelings, connected to the pleasant feelings. Whereas the third one, the Sankhara Dukkha, here dukkha due to formations. Again here bodily and mental formations, and these are connected to the neutral feelings. The direct translation is neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So we just use the word neutral feelings. And this one, this classification here, this is more important when we want to develop the mind. The first one, the first classification in the sense of conceal, expose, then that one is more towards when we want to introduce Dhamma to the people who do not know much about this Four Noble Truth and so on. But this one is more towards for a practitioner or those who wants to practice in the future. And this one will be very much connected. Now, let's look into dukkha dukkha. Right. Now, let's look into dukkha dukkha. What is this dukkha dukkha? And why the Pali word double? When the Pali word has double, means this intensified on the first word or the second word. If it's dukkha and then you have dukkha dukkha, that means it's painful part of it. Here, the dukkha dukkha, that one, we can see that from like sickness, aging, and so on. That also will fall under dukkha dukkha. But when we come into the meditation practice, this dukkha dukkha, especially in the beginning of the practice, Especially in the beginning of the practice, there's a lot of this dukkha. A lot of this painful sensation arises. So a lot of times when a yogi cannot take it, that is where they will pack their bags. That is where they will not come back again. Many of them, I've seen many of them over the years. It's not a problem with the satipatthana and so on, It's because of their nature of dukkha, because the mind cannot take it, undeveloped in that sense. So the various kinds of pain, that you go through, like your itchiness, like your pulling sensation, then you sit there, your knee also become very painful. When you pay attention to those things, they fall under 5 aggregates. In the sense that here, when you notice the thighs is very painful right now, is that there is a material part or the bodily part, and then you have the feelings part, the first aggregate and the second aggregate. Then that time you pay attention to it, but then this time you experience painful sensations. So there are many types of painful sensations will be coming in for most of you. Well, there are some of you who are more good karma, maybe less. Maybe less. There are people also, they at times they don't seem to feel a lot of pain, even though they are beginners, When they come in, they don't feel pain. For sometimes for 1 or 2 interviews, maybe I'm quite okay, But after a week, you sit there, there's not much of a pain here, no pain, nothing. Then I become quite suspicious. Quite suspicious is because sometimes one of the major reasons is that when they don't exert the mind, when you don't really have continuous mindfulness, this painful sensation also is not clear to you, in the sense that they are not obvious to you. You may sit there and then you may feel good, feel nice, because your mind is somewhere else. Or you pay a bit attention of rising, falling, or a little bit of in-breath, out-breath, and then after that your mind become quiet. Very nice sitting. So sitting after sitting, you do like that. Then I ask you, got pain or not? No pain, Bhante, so nice, so pleasant. 1 week passed through so fast. There's something wrong with your practice already. Then that time, you got to sit there in the interview room for a bit longer already, because this time I'm going to sharpen my knife a little bit more better. You sit there, I'm going to verbally, because a lot of things are usually, if the pain does not arise, then one of the main indication is that the mindfulness is not penetrative, or the mindfulness is not continuous, or you are doing something else in the meditation, entering in the meditation. So we know, as long as you have this body, you still have pain on her. Some people think that, some yogis think that when it comes to this meditation, they thought that, okay, first retreat, second retreat, I got all the pain. After third retreat, fourth retreat, fifth retreat, I think the pain will be over already. And then, now never mind, I'll take in all the pain first. Grit my teeth, do whatever, try lah. Then next time, no pain, guarantee. Then every retreat they come back, and the dukkha is still there. Painful. And sometimes, when you go into a bit more deeper aspect of the practice, the dukkha can be very strong. The dukkha can be even stronger sometimes compared in the beginning of the practice. But the difference here is that when you are in a deeper practice, compared when you are in the beginning practice. In the deeper practice, your mind is much more developed. Whereas in the beginning practice, your mind is not developed that much, a little bit of development only. That's why when pain comes in, you cannot tolerate the pain. When itchiness comes in, you cannot tolerate the itchiness. When all kinds of mental thoughts comes in, we connected with sorrow or sadness, then also you cannot take it. Whereas when you come into the deeper aspect of the practice, where when you can able to develop, then that time, the pain also can be very strong, even can be stronger. Your sorrow, the past, the past memories that connected with sorrow, that one also become very obvious, more obvious than in the beginning of the practice. But at that time, the mind can able to see the nature of the mind, but not much of a sorrow arises, because this one, the sorrow is optional here mentally, but it still come in, not as strong as before. But the pain, the bodily pain, bodily pain is not optional. The bodily pain will be there. The Buddha also have bodily pain. So don't think that when we practice, we're going to have less pain. Bodily pain especially. Mental stress, that one, yes. That one is something that maybe one of these talks, when we connected with this dukkha, we're going to talk about that also, because this is where a lot of times people get stuck into the mental stress. And that mental stress, sometimes sometimes there are, especially in Asia, people are shy to open up, to open up to some of their past incidents, and then it gets very, the whole practice becomes very stagnant because of that type of thoughts arises every time in their practice. So here we have to learn to overcome them too. We have to learn to overcome them, and then to settle them, so that the mindfulness can arise again. Maybe we'll talk about that too. So throughout the practice, this dukkha here, they are to help you to see things a little bit more deeper. That all this painful sensation, later on when the mind is more developed, that the mind can able to take in the dukkha, or the pain of the legs, or pain of the body, and so on. That time, your mind is so much more stable. Although the pain is there while you're meditating, but your mind is not affected by it. The mind has no anger towards it. There's no fear towards it. There's no doubt that arises. So sometimes in the beginning of the practice, yogi may have doubts about, even with the pain also, even this time, even with the pain, which is the second aggregate, but they are doubting that aggregate. They're doubting the pain right now, whether it's supposed to be there or not supposed to be there. How come this meditation, I heard this talk, I heard some talks by some charismatic monks, popular monks. They say, why come to retreat? Then you have to go through all the pain here, pain there, pain everywhere. Retreat's supposed to give you all the happiness. You already have so much pain in your everyday life. You already have pain in your stress, in your work, stress with your family, stress with your friends, stress with financial stress. you have so much problem already. Why must you come into a retreat and then you face more stress and you face more pain, mentally and physical pain? Now, if you do not know the meaning of this dukkha, then when the monk says like that or the teacher says like that, you feel that, hey, okay, why? Yeah, it's true, huh? After all, why we need to come to a retreat and feel all the pain? That is where how our all this distorted thinking, chitta vipallasa, distorted thinking all arises. Because it can easily convince by monks or by especially charismatic speakers. Then really you easily bought into it because it's very connected to a lot of pleasant things, pleasantness. People will buy the idea of pleasantness rather than the idea of dukkha here and dukkha there. So that's why, as I said, in the past, in the retreats, I say, don't worry about vipassana getting more people. Vipassana meditation will not get more people compared to a samatha meditation and so on. Because inherently, the pain will filter all these people out until the one who is brave enough, they will settle into it. Yeah. So it is like this. Yeah. The nature of the nature of the practice, it's difficult because right in the beginning you have to encounter a lot of pain. Don't think that now you just because if you have jhana from a samatha meditation and then after that or you want to come into vipassana, you think the pain just because you have samatha already you don't have pain. No such thing. You have to see the nature of the pain here. Then the first one is dukkha dukkha. The second one here is the viparinama dukkha. Viparinama dukkha here is dukkha due to change. Yeah? Dukkha due to change here, sometimes also you will read that in the suttas, the Buddha says, whatever is impermanent is dukkha. Whatever is anicca is dukkha. That's why in the meaning of the dukkha, just now I put it up, that it mentioned that it's impermanent or it's changing. Whatever is changing is dukkha. There are, when it comes into impermanence, there are also like, you have a conventional layer of impermanence, and then you have a reality type of impermanence. The conventional one is when you read or when you think about it. Conventional truth. They are truth, but they are conventional truth. Then this one, for example, when some people read in the Facebook, in the Instagram, in the YouTube, or in the suttas, sometimes they say some people, especially all have this WhatsApp group. Every morning there are some people, they will send you morning impermanence is the teaching of the Buddha. Then they write down their bottom Buddha. Anicca dukkha good morning first. They say good morning first. Then they send you all these things. Something like that. You read about it. You read about it, you think about it, that is all conventional truth. It goes aligned with reality. Yeah. And when it comes into reality here, the nature of this impermanent is, or the nature of viparinama dukkha, there are two aspects of it. One is the changing aspect. One is the actual impermanent aspect. You've got to divide into two because Normally, when I talk, I just give you impermanence as a whole. But when we want to go into a deeper aspect into the vipassana, the impermanence has two parts now. One is the actual impermanent. One is not impermanent yet, but is on the way. It's more like a changing. More like things are changing, but not the real impermanent yet. So that's why I have to divide it here into two parts, because due to the nature of vipassana. Yeah? Now the first part here, when it's changing, this is how you experience changing, in the sense that when you, for example, you watch your rising and falling, or you watch your in-breath, out-breath. Then the rising and falling, it happens, for example, it goes long for a few times. Then after that, it becomes shorter, and then it stays short. Then after that, it goes sideways for you, sideways. It goes like, hey, how come it can go sideways also? I thought rising, falling has to go front and back only. How can it go sideways? But this time it shows you sideways, then your job is to see them as they are. Not see them what you want, Because sometimes if you see them what you want, you think that, hey, rising, falling cannot go sideways. Must breathe in again, then go up and down. Then you want to see things as what you want, not as what they really are. So what they really are, then now you see the rising, falling, it goes sideways. Then after that, it shows you, it go long again after that, So in that sense of just on the rising, falling aspect, when you see this way of how it change, now that is how it will be called. It's in the form of viparinama. It's a form of change. In the sense that this type of change, you will see it quite a lot. You see quite a lot. But sometimes yogis, they say that, oh, Bhante, I'm so happy with my practice, I can see impermanent, I can see anicca already. Wow, so happy, They come and report to you. And it feels, they feel nice, they feel very happy, But I know in my mind, this is not the real impermanence yet. But I don't want to kill the joy, you see. They're still so happy, and then let them be happy, But I say, okay, don't get attached to it. Don't get attached to it. Just keep on meditating. And they feel good, okay? They feel good. No problem, Yeah, sometimes it's no point to explain so many things, because after all, time is limited. And then after all, they haven't experienced the further aspect of the deeper impermanence yet. So let them be happy first, Not to say that they are totally wrong, but they are not totally right first. They say that, oh, I'm experiencing impermanent here and there. Okay. Yeah, not out of this one, as long as you don't get attached to it. So they experience this change and so on. So when you experience this type of change, then it's a viparinama, not really impermanent yet. Now, when it comes to the deeper impermanence, the second part of the impermanence, here the impermanence here is where you actually see the arising and passing away. The moment it arises, the moment it exactly passes away. And that time, any of the 5 aggregates that your mind touch on or your mind notes, that time it only shows you arising and passing away. Now, even that you are noting the mind also. Even you notice the mind also will shows you the arising and passing away. The restlessness comes in, arising and passing away. If you notice the mind as a knowing mind, that also you also notice arising and passing away. Before in the beginning of the practice, when you note a knowing mind, for example, the knowing mind is as if it's just blank. You look at it blank, nothing much. But when you note your rising, falling, you note your pain sensation here, pulling there, and then there's a lot of sensation. Just like this one also connected with the talk, connected with the Q&A on Friday. Now, before I forget, on this Friday also, we have a Q&A also. So, when in the beginning part, when you note the mind, you don't note it much of anything. The mind doesn't show you all is arising and passing away, because the nature of the mind, they are subtle. All these the perception, feelings, sankhara, chitta, all these are quite subtle. In the beginning part, it is not advisable for yogis to take up this object. You have to take up the more obvious object, and the more obvious object is the bodily sensations and the painful feelings. They are very obvious. Sometimes the painful feelings are more obvious than the bodily feelings. So these are the viparinama. And another part of this viparinama dukkha is when it's connected to the pleasant feelings. Now, here the pleasant feelings also, when you pay attention to it, if your mind can stay with it and you actually take this as an object of meditation, then at time also you find that these pleasant feelings are also changing. They are not lasting. And then after that, you go into neutral, or you can go into also unpleasant feelings. Now, later on, when it comes into a deeper insight, any of this unpleasant feeling arises. Let's say you find that when you sit down, and then the body is quite pleasant, the temperature is just right and just pleasant. But when you pay attention to those pleasant feelings that arises in the body, that time, the mind sees it as unpleasant, sees it as something uneasiness, although the body feels pleasant. So because of something is changing inside there, inside the mind. We're going to touch upon that also. Anyway, so here when the mind is changing, or the body is changing, or there's arising and passing away, then this one falls under all this viparinama dukkha, usually connected with the pleasant feelings. Anyway, the third one is this Sankhara Dukkha. Now the Sankhara Dukkha here, they are dukkha due to formations, bodily formations or mental formations. We go back again on this one. We go back again on the screen sharing. All right. Can you see again? Okay. Now, Sankhara due to formations here, what it means here is anytime any aspect, when you note your object, during in the deeper aspect, then that time, anything sometimes you see it as forming. You see it as forming, it arises, then you feel that it's unpleasant. You feel that it is very unsatisfactory. Here we go back here again to this meaning here. Wait, I put it into one page. Now, dukkha, meaning of is changing. Being formed right there. Being formed here, it's connected to dukkha due to formations. Because here the formation is like things are arising and arising and arising and arising and arising. Most of the time when you are in the beginning of the practice, you don't see this arising. It's already there somewhere in the middle already. The pain comes in already there, the pain is there, and then it grow more, it grow less. But you don't see actually how it arises. Here being formed here, at times in the deeper aspect of vipassana, you can actually see how they actually arise. Sometimes you can see the connection of the arising also, in the sense that you feel a certain experience in the body. Let's say itchiness arises. and itchiness arises, then after that, you also notice that there are mental feelings arises. Mental anger also arises. Mental thoughts also arises. Usually when in the beginning part, when the issue arises, immediately we go into anger, we go into a lot of thinking about, is it a mosquito, is it this or is it that? We go into a lot of thinking, a lot of proliferation of the mind. So we are not mindful. We are not mindful of these processes. Whereas when you are much more mindful, much more clearer, you begin to see them, see this process like as if like you are stepping out, and you begin to see this process of itchiness arises, then the thoughts arises, anger arises, that they are connected with this itchiness that is happening. So you see there's a formation that arises during this time. So when you see this formation arises again and again, then you see these things as something very unsatisfactory, something dukkha. You don't. It's. You don't feel you don't feel painful sensation there. You don't feel anything that. You feel painful maybe in the itchiness a little bit, but in the minor, you look at it as something as dukkha. That's why the whole aspect of dukkha, it's looking it as a process that is happening or something that is arising during this time. Then what you are seeing right now is Sankhara Dukkha right now. Sankhara Dukkha. So the dukkha here means being formed, and these are quite a bit more deeper than the normal, birth is suffering and so on. But this one is a bit more deeper. We will talk about these unpleasant feelings, on how we can able to overcome these unpleasant feelings, especially unpleasant mental feelings, because the unpleasant bodily feelings, we will touch upon it a little bit also in the next following talks. Then, because I talked about that in some of the talks ago, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I talked about bodily pain, how to overcome some bodily, we can note the bodily pain, not overcome the bodily pain. How we can note the bodily pain in the right way. Now, dukkha here, these are what we call perceptions. These are sanya. Dukkha sanya. And while we are meditating, we are, every noting that you are going through, you are changing your perception. A perception is being changed internally while you are cultivating your mindfulness, you are cultivating your effort, and so on. And you are seeing things as they really are. That means you notice the pain, you notice the sensation, in breath, out breath, rising, falling, itchiness here, thoughts here and there. Every time you pay attention to them in the right way, then you are changing the mental perception. And this is where the mental perception that we talk about that during in the I, me, myself, that talk, self and I, where I talk about there are, I show you better, I think. Yes, this is the one. The distortion of perception. Whereas when you have distortion of perception, it comes into distortion of your thinking, of cognition, of consciousness. With that wrong, distorted perception, then it comes into this distortion or perversion of views, wrong views here. Not just view, this is wrong views. So the perception of wrong views, okay? Now, while we are meditating, when we pay attention to the nature of the pain, If you are not trained into it, every time when we look at pain, our mind goes into anger. If just like you ask a person who would not done meditation before, who do not know Dhamma or anything, untaught disciples, untaught ordinary beings. The Buddha used the word. Then, when they look at anything that is unpleasant, anger immediately arises. Anger immediately arises. Why is that so? Because behind that, before the anger arises, the mind is already somewhat distorted from our rounds of samsara. All this distortion of perception is carried forward life after life, and it will be part of us if we do not know how to change it. And we think that is normal. Something unpleasant, we must get angry. But in the vipassana here is that we don't change the unpleasant feelings. We change the perception. We don't go and cover up the unpleasant feelings. We don't go and get rid of the pain or here and there. The training is to change this perception. Here, our distorted perception from since time immemorial, since birth after rebirth, birth after birth after birth, we carry this distorted perception. That we're thinking that all this sukha, pleasant, and this subha, beautiful or pure, we thought that they are all right. But when we come into the Dhamma, and we begin to learn the Dhamma, and we begin to develop the mind, then here we begin to change our perception from sukha or from subha into seeing it as dukkha and asubha, the right perception of dukkha and asubha. Here is that every moment you pay attention to the nature of the pain. You see, some of you has practiced for some time, that you begin to see that in the first retreat, second retreat, you may find that there's a lot of anger inside you, a lot of anger when you're dealing with this pain. But subsequently, after you have developed further and further, then you still have pain. But this time, when you see the nature of the pain, the anger is not there. You begin to able to accept and see it as it is, as they are. You're not want to get rid of the pain. So your mind can able to see it. So what happened? What happened from the beginning until now? How come the mind doesn't have that anger anymore? Because here, there's a lot of perception has been changed inside there. You begin to change to see it as something that is terrible, something then is something much more acceptable here. Even with the pleasant feelings, also the same thing. The pleasant feelings, when we, in the beginning part, anything that is pleasant, we get attached to it. Anything cool, we want it, we like it. But when we are much more developed, the coolness or the pleasantness of the body or the pleasantness of the mind that arises, we only see them as they really are. And we see them how they change, what is going on there. So here, again, the change has taken place. The changing of the wrong perception into right perception is taken place. Noting by noting. Noting by noting by noting by noting. So it will take you, we do not know. It all depends on how matured your mind is. In the past, during the Buddha's time, the Buddha give Dhamma talk only. Here, the whole perception changed already. There they are, sit there and enlighten already. Give Four Noble Truths. There, everything changed, enlighten taking place. Here, as I said, you all have been listening to the Four Noble Truths again and again and again. You can able to chant the Four Noble Truths, chant the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. You can able to do that, but you still cannot able to penetrate anything yet. Why? Because the perception is so strong in all of us. The distorted perception is so strong. So we need that noting to see it as it is, so that that perception will change slowly and slowly. So here, when it comes into, when you pay attention to the pain and all these things that is difficult, then you're changing the whole mind into a right perception. So this is on the dukkha part here. So as I said in the next talk, not on Friday, maybe on Monday again, then we'll look into it as the how we can actually overcome some of the mental suffering that arises. That there are ways to overcome it. At least it helps us to cool the mind down, and then we can able to progress. If not, sometimes this mental suffering, mental stress can be a very huge block in our progress. So that one we're going to look into it. All right. So on Friday we have on Friday again, as I said, we have a Q&A session, and the Q&A session here. Okay, let me read. A Q&A session here. In the chat here, there's a Brother Benny. If again, for those who are overseas, then it's a +6011 and then carry out by the number. Then Friday, and then again here the Q&A session. Usually my criteria for your questions should be something to connected with the Dhamma talks, connected with the Dhamma, connected with the with the Dhamma, okay, things like this. Then only I can able to answer you. If you ask me things like, how to cure depression, if somebody got depression, then it's not my area, If you have, if you are quarreling with your husband, so how can you tell him like that? That is not my area. You ask me something on Dhamma. So, all right, that's all for tonight.